time, chat. It's finally time. After a long, long wait for a lot of individuals, it is finally time. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. I'm not sure if I want to call it that, though, because it's not necessarily Mushoku Tensei, ? But yes, Old Dragon's Tale. It is finally time. Hype levels through the roof. I know there's like a few people in the chat that are like, finally. Which is funny because I'm actually doing subjugation. I'm joking. I'm joking. I actually debated which one to do first, and I'm like, I've heard some things that subjugation is kind of, accented if you have some Old Dragon's Tale in there. Like I said before, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to do them all, but I think it's finally time. We got all the side stuff done of like all the current time, into the future type stuff. I want to get all that stuff done with the current characters, and then we'll go on the Dragon's Tale. So now we're finally doing that because we got all that stuff done for the most part. I think there's some Asian stories and whatnot that are like exclusive that we can get into, whatever, but it's fine. I think we're ready. It's finally time to dive into it. I hope this lives up to the hype. Y'all been hyping this up for a long time. Some people getting kind of nasty in the chat. It better live up to that hype. And if it doesn't, I'm banning you all. I'm going to ban you. I should have banned you all a long time ago, but I'm going to ban you. But yes, I hope it's good. I hope it's as good as everybody kind of says. And I think it's really around what I'm assuming is, of course, like Laplace and all of them, which I think will be very interesting if it ends up being that. I'm assuming with the dragon thing, it's going to be about those characters back there. But we'll see. I think the biggest question mark that I really have is around how this is told. Who these characters are, how I'm going to voice them, all that kind of stuff. Because I think for the most part, a lot of the Dragonfolk characters, I've been kind of keeping them to like a similar voice, and I'm not going to do that for... If there's a lot of characters like that, I'm not going to do that for all of them. I'm going to have to change things up a bit, because I'm not going to do gruffy, Pedagoose and Orsted voices all the time. But we'll see who these characters are and what their names are and everything. But before then, hey chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week after Mushoku Monday. I greatly appreciate your guys' kind words, your support, all that stuff. Thank you. Most importantly, though, greatly appreciate it. Support channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. Thank you. Last week, you had Spud Monkey with 17 months. Thank you so much for the long time support. Subro with a super, Rosemouth with a super, and Soundwave with a super. Thank you. I really do appreciate you guys' support. But with all that said, let's jump into it. Are you ready? Chat, are you ready? Chapter 1. The Dragon and the Girl. It's not going to be Nanahoshi, is it, though? I'm thinking it's going to go back further. We end up doing Nanahoshi's story. Across the continent, there exists a mountain range that stretches over the land. At the heart of that mountain range, there was one particularly large mountain. Its name was Dragon Roar Mountain. Dragon Roar Mountain is the tallest mountain in the world, located deep within the mountain range. While trees cling to the rocky surface, its steep cliffs prevent people from entering. On top of that, red dragons inhabit the high peaks. It's not a place for people to live. Even high-ranking adventurers sometimes visit the base of the mountain, but they never venture deep inside. However, if a powerful adventurer were to climb the mountain, they would witness an astonishing sight. A house. Okay. In the middle of the mountain, there was a single house. It was an unusual sight. A house where people lived, in a place where no one should be. If an adventurer got close to that house, they would be even more surprised by what they saw. A girl who seemed out of place in the deep mountains was there. A blonde girl with long ears, carrying what looked like a bucket, was waddling back and forth in front of the house. The girl carried the bucket in the back of the house, returned inside, then came out again with the bucket, repeating this process. It seemed like she was carrying water or something from the back of the house. If you followed the girl to the back of the house, you would see that there's a large cave there. The cave had an eerie atmosphere, but the girl, unfazed, entered it and walked further in. Deeper inside, waiting, was a reptile with a huge body, a long neck, red scales, sharp fangs, and claws. A red dragon. Girls keeping a dragon. What? Well, I mean, the question mark here at this point already is, like, who is this elf girl? And is she, in fact, extremely powerful to be living in this area? The girl poured the contents of the bucket into a box placed near the red dragon. The red dragon showed no hostility towards the girl, merely watching her as she worked, as if to say, hurry up and finish. Is she nursing the dragon, or is the dragon, like, allowing her to serve it? However, the amount the girl could carry in the bucket was far too small for the size of the box. She would have to go back and forth many times to fill it. That said, it seemed this was her last trip. The girl placed the bucket by the box and stretched. Phew, water fetching is done. The girl cheerfully declared this and bowed to the dragon. The The dragon, too, snorted as if to say, well done. The girl cheerfully returned to the house. It was a simple wooden house, nothing particularly special about it. However, anyone with a discerning eye would notice that the house was protected by a very advanced magical barrier. Interesting. Master, I'm done fetching water. When the girl entered the house, a scene brimming with a feeling of everyday life unfolded before her. Chairs, tables, potted plants, piles of papers, and all sorts of junk, whose purpose was unclear, filled the room. The girl carefully weaved her way through them. She did so because the person that she called out to didn't respond. She quickly reached her destination, the innermost room of the house. It was the largest room, where the master of the house stayed. Master? The girl opened the door and stepped inside. Inside, bookshelves towering several times her height was lined up, packed closely together. It looked just like a library. The girl walked further into the forest of bookshelves. There was only a handful of libraries in this world, but this book-filled world was a familiar sight to her. In the middle of the space full of books, there was a man. He had his back to the entrance, focused on writing something at his desk. His hair was a mixture of mottled silver and green. It was an eerie hair color, but again, one the girl was used to seeing. I'm guessing Laplace, ? The green thing? Good grief, master. When the girl called out, the man flinched and lifted his head. He slowly spread his wings spread his wings from his back and turned around. The man recognized the girl. Oh, Rosalina, you're still awake at this late hour? You have plenty of work tomorrow. You should get to bed early. What late hour? The sun's already up. I haven't finished serving water to Mr. Dragon. Oh, is that so? The man stood up. When he did, the girl had to look up at him. After all, the man was over 2 meters tall. I see. You finished serving him water? Good job. But, I see. A whole day has passed already. Master, you need proper sleep. Yeah, I know. Even though the girl practically shouted, the man remained indifferent. No, you don't. You haven't slept for the past 2 days either. I don't need to sleep every day like you do. Is that so? Yes. I belong to a very long-lived race. Sleeping once every few years is more than enough. Sleeping once every few years? I'm not sure that you wouldn't pick up on that quite yet. I don't know if they ever implied that with, like, Orsted, again, and assuming this is like Laplace or a dragon folk. I don't know if they ever implied the fact that they don't have to sleep that often. I mean, it did talk a little bit from that little perspective chapter of Orsted that he, like, when he did have to sleep, he found himself, like, indefenseless or whatever, so he had to figure out something else there, but that's, yeah. The girl looked puzzled at the man's reply, but in an instant, she puffed out her cheeks. I don't know anything about you, master. That's true, but you never asked, and yet you followed me all this time. Please, tell me more about yourself. Of course, I don't mind, but my life has been long. The story might take a while. The man squinted slightly as he said this, glancing around. Even with his tall stature, the bookshelves around him still towered above. The shelves were packed tightly with books. Every one of them had been written by the man. They were records of his life, his history. That tracks. I don't mind. Actually, are you sure, master? Aren't you busy? It's fine. From someone like me, who has such a long life, a second holds little to no value. I've got more than enough time to talk to you. With that, the man gestured towards a nearby chair for the girl to sit in. He also sat down, resting his hand thoughtfully on his chin. But if we're going to talk, wouldn't it be more fun to tell a different story than my own? Like the tale of a boy who journeyed alone to defeat the demon empress? Or the story of a hero who killed a giant monster and won the heart of a princess? Or perhaps the story of a saint who was manipulated by an evil god, forced to fight an unwinnable war? No, that last one wasn't exactly a fun story. I mean, obviously the first one is Otis. The one that killed a giant monster and won over the princess would be the North God, ? Or was it the Water God? No, that was the Water God, because that was the name of Rada. And the one manipulated by an evil god and forced to fight an unwinnable war, would that be Body Gotti? So is this after that rift happened then? So this isn't as far back as I thought it would be. But again, we're going to be telling a story. We're going to be talking back to a story. But that would imply that this is not Laplace. Who is this that's talking? I'm gonna hold my judgment because I don't want to get too mixed up here. No, I want to know more about you, master. The girl interrupted him, sensing that if she didn't stop him, she would end up hearing some other story instead. Ah, I see. But what exactly do you want to know about me? Everything. Everything? Like how you lived your life up until now, and why you do the work you do, and things like that. I see, but it's not a very pleasant story. There might be some interesting parts, but it all leads to a sad ending. My life is a bad ending. If you listen to it, I'm sure you'll end up feeling sad. I don't care. At the girl's firm tone, the man sighed as if giving in and removed his hand from his chin. He looked up at the ceiling, as if gazing at a version of himself from long ago. All right, then. If you insist, I'll tell you. But where to start? I rarely talk about my past, so I'm not sure where to begin. You should start from the very beginning, when you were born and first became aware of the world. From the very beginning, huh? I hope I can tell it well. If you find it boring, feel free to fall asleep. If you'd rather sleep than listen to my story, don't hesitate. I'm not like you, Master. I wouldn't fall asleep when someone's talking. Haha. You're a good girl, aren't you? All right, then. Let's begin. The man quietly closed his eyes. The girl leaned forward, eager to listen. Let's start before I was born, with how the world itself came to be. We're going that far back? We're going to the origins of the six-faced world? Are we going all the way back there? All the way back there? The man began to speak. He told a story from long, long ago, from the age of myths. Chapter 2, The Birth of the Demon Dragon. Here we go. Now we're brewing stuff. Now we're piquing my interest. We're piquing my interest. Once upon a time, there was a god. Let's call him the creator god. He was old. He had lived through eons and created countless worlds, but both his body and his mind had reached their limit. He knew his death was near. As his final task, he decided to create one more world. However, he hadn't created a world in a long time, perhaps because of his long hiatus, or perhaps because his faculties were declining. The world he created was terribly distorted and unbalanced. He no longer had any power to properly create a world. However, he was experienced from creating many worlds before, so he created another world. Just like with the first one, it was also distorted. So wait, he didn't have the power to create another world and he created another world? The world he created was terribly distorted and unbalanced. He no longer had the power to properly create a world. However, he had the experience from creating many worlds before, so he created another world. So he did create it. Okay, that's weird. Just like the first one, it was also distorted. Without hesitation, he continued creating world after world. In this way, he created 6 worlds. There you go. A world of dragons, where the heavens and the earth were inverted, inhabited by a race of immense power. A world of demons, filled with swirling poisons and miasma, inhabited by a race with strong, resilient bodies. A world of dense forests and mountains, inhabited by a race with sharp claws and keen senses. A world rich with life under the sea, inhabited by a race with gills, fins, and scales. A world of floating land masses in the sky, inhabited by a race that could freely soar through the skies with their wings. A world of plains and grasslands inhabited by a race with weak bodies but superior intellect. Each of these worlds was warped. Any one of them, on its own, would collapse because they were too unbalanced. So the god fused the worlds together. By closely connecting the 6 worlds, he achieved balance. Thus, one world was created. Huh. I mean, I've already kind of heard from many people the concept that this could be implying the idea of it literally being like a dice. It's 6 faces to this world. And there's something that sort of, bridges between each of them. That's how we've gotten to the point that we are, is the destruction of each one of them and them just kind of finding that bridge that goes between them. Potentially just using teleportation magic itself or summoning magic to transport through the barren lands to each side. Potentially that the dragon folk learned about that. I think the question mark that I always had, though, at the time was that if the dragon folk were going around and destroying each of these worlds, how were people fleeing to the final remaining one? How did they arrive there unless they use that same technology to transcend each face of the world? But anyways, going back to this. This makes sense, that whole logic there of it being sort of, again, like a dice, physically looking like a dice with each of these sides, because it's saying that these are fused together to make a world. It is saying this is a world. Each of the worlds were warped. But that's interesting to me. Each of these worlds were warped because he seems to have, some kind of problems with making it. And thus each one of them has, a fault to it. It's weird in some way. It's messed up in some way. And the only way that it can remain, the only way that it can keep them from collapsing is that they're fused together. Which that makes me wonder if that's more of the idea of just, logics of the world itself. There's some sort of flaw in the logics of the world. They have to be together in order for it to have some sort of yin-yang kind of thing. Some sort of, balance in the mana or something like that. One requires a lot of mana. The other one doesn't, so it's feeding it in some way. That kind of thing. There's some sort of laws in physics, magic, mana, something that needs them to be connected to each other. Thus, one world was created. But the god was not satisfied with just that. The 6 worlds barely maintained their balance by being stuck to each other, but they required management until they stabilized and settled and stabled. The god used the last of his strength to split his own body From his divided body, he created beings to manage the precariously balanced worlds, assigning each to a world, and then the god died. What happened after his death, no one knows. Perhaps the creator god never existed in the first place. After all, no one had ever seen him. What remained were the 6 beings, one for each world and each race. Since they were fragments of the god, we'll call them gods. Each god descended into their respective worlds. They found their people, huddling together in the vast worlds, and worked to help them prosper. However, not all of the world's races prospered smoothly. In particular, the world of the dragons and the world of the demons remained primitive for a long time. The long-lived, powerful, and robust beings in those worlds could survive without developing civilizations. Yet both the dragon world and the demon world were harsh environments. In such a world, teeming with vicious dragons and beasts, seizing dominance would be no easy feat. Despite having power to rule over their worlds, the dragon and demon races remained stagnant. And because of that, perhaps one god felt pity for them, or maybe it was impatience. But one of the gods made a proposal. Why don't we meet regularly and hold discussions? Let's exchange information about our worlds and use it to help each other prosper. The god was the human god, the deity of the human world. The possibilities are already building up. The possibilities are already building up here. I was kind of curious how this would end up coming to being, because they kind of did imply the idea of having like different gods for each of the sides. And again, with the idea of there being a man god and assuming he was the human god, and he wasn't necessarily, I mean, again, going back to originally the idea of each of the language, them being called like, you know, sea god tongue, human god tongue, all that stuff. The assumption there was that they were based on an actual god. And it could be, again, in reverence to these particular individuals. Wasn't really sure, though, if they were going to actually be actual gods. This kind of confirms it. This individual that was the creator split their body into multiple of these gods and had them sort of look over each one of these sides. But it also does mention the fact that there was something else there, but we don't know what happened to it. There was like this little other fragment of the creator god that was sort of left by. There was this last remaining fragment of the creator god that was assumed to be perished, I guess. Who could have that been? The man god? No, I'm joking. The man god? I don't know, could be. But I'm already kind of wondering, is the human god going to be the big bad guy? This god was a human god, the deity of the human world. Humans had the shortest lifespans and were the weakest. Most of them died before they even lived for 10 years, succumbing to illness or injury. I would assume, yeah, kind of a note here. Assume that'd be the Dryden syndrome. Was saying that most of them died. Most people died? I wasn't sure. Did they actually specify that many people? I mean, it was a bad illness back then for sure. But I'm not sure if they ever implied it was like most of them. Most of them. That would imply that more than 50%-ish. However, the human world was not a harsh one, but rather abundant with nature and full of resources and food. But again, that implied that these worlds were unbalanced. And I can see that being an aspect of them not being able to accept the mana. And again, that mana might need to be going to another side of it if it hurts the humans. Again, that balance. So I literally can see Dryden syndrome being a side effect of the fact that they didn't properly balance the world. And again, when they fused them together, it didn't pull enough of the mana away from the human side to keep it from harming them. However, the human world was not a harsh one, but rather abundant with nature and full of resources and food. As a result, the human race prospered faster than any other. And I can see when they come together for these meetings, one of the sides is going to be like, why can't I have that stuff? I can already see one of the other sides getting a little jealous of the human side. A moderately challenging environment fostered wisdom, and rapid generational change enriched their knowledge. The quicker a race prospers, the faster it accumulates the knowledge and wisdom it needs. The human god shared this knowledge with the other gods. Thanks to this, the dragon folks and the demons learned many things, starting with language and writing, to the knowledge of living in groups and establishing order. These things brought the light of civilization to races that once lived no different from beasts. Of course, the other races didn't just receive, they shared their own strengths with the humans as well. The dragon folk taught humans how to harness their power within their bodies. So they're already mingling. Okay. So they're going between the worlds. They're going from the different sides of the world. My assumption early on when this whole thing, and again, it's kind of partly what I had the assumption of back when I was reading the mainline series. The assumption that I always had was, again, that there was a bridge that was made through the barren land, through teleportation or something, to get the other side of worlds. And that people were fleeing through that same technology to get around. That there wasn't a physical bridge. Like, you couldn't just walk across the ocean or whatever. You know, just jump over here, get in a boat, you swim around the edge of the six-face world and go to the next one or whatever. That there had to be some sort of transportation that was acquired here. And when I started getting into this, my assumption was that the gods were in the barren lands and they were kind of meeting together and they were going to each of the sides and giving the information to them. I guess technically the dragon god talking to them and wanting to pay back the human god is like, okay, well, tell your people how to do this. It works out well. I don't know. The demons taught humans how to alter their bodies to withstand such power. The beast folk taught humans how to tame and live alongside savage creatures. The sea folks taught humans how to filter water and keep it pure. The sky folk taught humans how to read the winds and control the weather. The six worlds support each other, aiming for prosperity together. Till somebody gets jealous. Until somebody gets jealous. Though the human world, with its rapid renewal, flourished the most, every world thrived in its own way. All the gods believed that their prosperity would continue for thousands or tens of thousands of years without end. None of them knew at the time, not the six gods, nor perhaps even the creator god, that in the shadows of the worlds, a single entity had quietly been born. Laplace? Laplace? Thus the worlds were born, and tens of thousands of years passed. That being said, from today's perspective, it was still a distant past. To you, it would be considered the age of myths. During that time, I was in a remote corner of the demon world. Of course, I had no name. I must have been young, freshly born, but my body size wasn't much different from what it is now. Well, maybe a little smaller. One head, 2 arms, 2 legs, pale and translucent skin, and wings sprouting from my back. In that remote corner of the demon world, dense miasma filled the air, and vicious beasts roamed the land. It was a land of death. At the time, I had no way of knowing, but the demons referred to it as the edge of the world. In a cave nestled in that corner, I had my lair. No one knew how long I had been there. Not even I knew. By the time I became aware of my surroundings, I was in that cave, surviving by eating the beasts. You think I just popped up in such a place all of a sudden? Well, I don't remember, and no one else knows, so it can't be helped. Maybe I was born in a demon settlement and abandoned. Maybe I was born in another world and somehow transported here. At that time, strange things were beginning to happen in the 6 worlds, so nothing would be surprising. Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the big question mark that I had at the time, was like, why was he known as being the Demon Dragon King? I mean, the possibility there, again, this is Laplace, the possibility there of him being sort of a crossbreed. But I kind of wonder if it's being, like, very literal here in the idea of him being from another world, like a completely different world, like Isekai, or if it's going to be, like, within the 6 face worlds. In any case, by the time I had a sense of myself, there was no one around, and I didn't find any of that particularly odd. After all, I knew nothing. I didn't know that there were other people, how they lived, conversations, studies, magic, nothing. I might think that I'm a bit more knowledgeable than the average person now, but without someone to teach you, that's just how it is. My daily routine was simple. Crawl out of the cave when the sun rose, hunt down beasts, eat until full, then return to the cave to sleep. Repeating this cycle over and over. The beasts were ferocious creatures, each one as large as a small mountain, incredibly strong yet agile, and they even formed packs. The top beings in the demon world were people. In other words, the demons. As big as mountains, the beasts, like the creatures, like all of them, they're all this big. Jeez. But even those demons couldn't defeat these beasts without ganging up on them. Yet I devoured these beasts with ease. I would quietly sneak up, pounce on them, pin them down, bite into them, and tear them apart. I did it all alone. Yes, even back then, I had great power. I had enough strength to overpower 1 or 2 beasts. But it wasn't just strength, I had cunning too. I had the wits to deceive the beasts and trap them. That's why I had no trouble living in the corner of the demon world. I lived solely by instinct, hunting beasts, that I would continue living this way until I died. Again, right there, already implying the fact that he's different than all the other demons. He's very, very powerful. So abandoned there, being extremely powerful, being very smart, an absolute oddity in the demon world. But as with all things, a turning point came. One day, I stumbled upon something. Can you guess what? A family of beasts. As I crouched in the shadows, ready to strike, the beasts huddled together, grooming each other's bodies, messing around and playing with each other. It's hard to put to words how I felt when I saw that. It was like suddenly realizing I was completely left behind in the world. A suffocating mix of anxiety and unease. Well, in a word, I guess it was loneliness. I killed and ate that family of beasts, but loneliness didn't go away. But the loneliness didn't go away. It's like I seen them, and I felt lonely. I ate them. I ate them, though. I still ate them. Even when I returned to my cave and laid down, the loneliness remained. In fact, the more time I spent in the dark cave, the stronger the loneliness became. I looked at my hands and feet in darkness. My hands and feet were completely different from those of the beast. I was a creature entirely different from the beasts, but I had never seen another being that looked like me. Okay, I was kind of curious about that, because it mentioned earlier the idea that, the other ones hunt these beasts. So my assumption was that it was speaking from perspective of that point that he had observed that the others were hunting them, but he has not seen anybody else. When I came to that realization, the loneliness within me reached its limits. I couldn't stand it anymore and rushed outside. I left my territory and wandered aimlessly, with no destination in mind. Along the way, I killed many beasts. There were all kinds of beasts. One with 8 legs, ones with 3 faces, even ones made of swarms of tiny insects. But none of them were like me. I killed the beasts and kept wandering. And then I found it. A collection of square buildings surrounded by tall walls. Yes, a town. A demon town. Inside that town were creatures that looked just like me. 1 head, 2 arms, 2 legs. Not exactly identical. There was some small differences between individuals, but they resembled me far more than any of the beasts that I'd seen. There were many of them. They lived together in groups. I was overjoyed. I had found others like me. I thought I'd finally found a way to rid myself of this overwhelming loneliness. With excitement in my heart, I approached the town. However, the first person who discovered me screamed in terror. Monster! Again, is he really a demon? Is he really a demon? Before my confused eyes, people quickly gathered. Each of them were armed with weapons. Why they react this way when they saw me? At the time, I didn't understand anything. After all, I had never seen my own reflection. I didn't realize it. I had no clue that something about my appearance was clearly different from the townspeople. My claws and fangs? No, that wasn't it. Many of the demons had claws and fangs. These golden eyes? No, that wasn't it either. Although none of the demons had golden eyes, many had different kinds of eyes. What disturbed them the most, what they found most ominous, was my hair. Look, see for yourself. My hair is a molten pattern of white and green. And if you stare at it for long enough, the pattern seems to shift and move, doesn't it? You might be used to it now, but I hear that, to those who see it, it stirs up a deep unease and dread, bringing up the feelings of foreboding and uneasiness in their hearts. I'm going to start feeling really dumb here soon if I find out this is not actually Laplace, but this, again, technically makes sense, the idea of the hair color itself, but right here it's talking about the idea of it being white and green. And I would assume that a lot of these people have green hair, question mark. If he's in the demon side and it's bothering them, it might be the fact that it's the white side. But, again, it goes back to the idea of this is Laplace. He does have a curse that was within his hair, or at least it's implied that the hair that Rejur gets is a signification of that curse going to him, and it causes an uneasiness. There's the hatred that people have for him because of that curse. And again, it could just be that overall he is just cursed and they don't find him pleasant. Just that was enough reason for the townspeople to call me a monster. They surrounded me with their weapons, directing clear hostility and murderous intent towards me. In response, I desperately tried to show that I was harmless. I could have run away. But somewhere deep down, I thought I'd be fine, even if they attacked. After all, surrounding me and showing my hostility meant they acknowledged I was stronger than them, didn't it? Honestly, I could have won if I fought them. But any sense of confidence vanished when a certain man appeared. He had a massive body, black skin, and 6 arms. Yes, a demon king. He suddenly attacked me. He was incredibly strong. I fought back with all of my might, but he struck me down, shattered my claws, and broke my wings. I'm guessing this is going to be... I mean, it says a demon king. I was going to assume it was going to be the demon god, but it's saying demon king specifically. I resisted as hard as I could, but there was no chance of victory. Faced with an opponent stronger than myself for the first time, I had no choice but to flee. Dragging my wounded body, I ran for my life. I was terrified of death. I didn't want to be killed. I didn't want to die. But more than that, I was overwhelmed by sadness. The sadness of not being accepted by those who look like me. After finally finding something that looks like him, seeing the family of beasts trying to find somebody and finding them and they don't accept them, I dragged my battered body back to my lair. The dark, quiet, damp cave was still filled with loneliness, pain, sadness, and loneliness. That was all that remained for me. I wasn't angry. I only had one question. Why? The question grew inside me, and I kept asking myself over and over, but I couldn't find an answer. Maybe it was because I couldn't find an answer. Once my wounds healed, I headed back to the settlement again. I knew it. I knew it would only end the same way, but I couldn't stop myself from going. Loneliness was far worse than pain, and so I kept approaching the settlement, watching it with envious eyes. Eventually, getting too close and being chased away. I repeated that process over and over. At the time, I didn't know it, but I was feared by the demons as a humanoid beast. They were terrified of my relentless persistence. My resilience was so strong that even the Demon King couldn't finish me off, and so I lived tormented by loneliness for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years they did this? Hundreds of years they were doing this? But all things come to an end. One day, I suffered a fatal wound. It wasn't because I lost the Demon King. I lost to a beast. It was a creature unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Its body was 3 times the size of a regular beast, yet it moved several times faster, had multiple heads, and spewed flames of poisonous mist. Its strength was incomparable to any beast I had encountered. Though I call it a beast, in truth, it wasn't a beast at all. It was a monster. The monsters of the demon world were far stronger than ones that roamed around today. I was burned, pierced, and beaten, and barely escaped with my life. Normally, I would return to my cave, eat something, sleep, and my wounds would heal. But that time, my wounds didn't fully heal, and I kept bleeding. It was probably due to the monster's poison. As I lay in my cave, I instinctively knew I was going to die. I didn't know much about the world, but I had some understanding of death. After all, I had killed and eaten countless beasts. I had seen thousands, maybe tens of thousands of deaths. I knew what death was. My consciousness was fading in and out, and I understood that once I faded completely, I would die, and I knew that moment wasn't far off. I desperately wanted to survive, but there was nothing I could do. If it were me now, I would have used some sort of detoxification magic, but back then, I knew nothing, and it was at that time that he appeared. So the rumor about the humanoid beasts were true. How fascinating. From my perspective, it felt like I suddenly became aware of a person inside my lair. He stood beside me, looking down at my bloodied, prone body, without me even noticing his approach. A hybrid of demon and demon folk. I wonder where and how you were born. Again, there's that confirmation there, a combination of both of them. I hazily looked up at him. He had a form very similar to mine. 1 head, 2 arms and legs, wings on his back, golden eyes, long sharp fangs and claws. So that was the other thing that I was kind of curious about was, do they actually have wings for dragonfolk? I would assume they all had wings, but they've never really kind of shown it, at least from the visuals that we have seen. So I was kind of wondered if they had to get them cut off or something like that, or they're just hiding them. The only difference was that his hair was silver, and his skin was covered in silvery scales. Is this due to the influence of the monsters as well? I had no strength left to rise, so I simply stared at him. Our eyes met. Though his gaze was sharp, I remembered it felt strangely warm. It was a look I had never received before. Well, whatever. If the demon god hasn't dealt with you, then he won't complain if I take you. I can find plenty of uses for you. Again, Is this dude just kind of trolling over to the demon world and just like, oh, here's a crossbreed of these two things. I'll just take it back to my place. But again, my question was this some sort of breed between the two sides that was dropped off here specifically? I thought originally it was going to be the demon god and the dragon god themselves may have like fused together or something like that. But this is implying that the demon god hasn't dealt with you. Thus, that means the demon god is still present and that this individual may possibly know the demon god. My assumption may be possibly them being the dragon god. Of course, I didn't remember the meaning of those words at the time, but I clearly remember the tone of his voice. I could never forget it. Later, when I learned to understand language, I realized what he had said. Standing, it was kind of the question mark that I had right there is how does he understand him? Standing directly above me, he clenched his fist tightly. His sharp claws dug into his palm, and red blood began to drip. And the red droplets fell into my wounds, and in an instant, the wounds that had shown no signs of healing began to close up. Once my injuries disappeared, he took off his cloak and wrapped it around me. Then, as I looked up in shock, my pain vanished along with my wounds. He picked me up under his arm and walked out of the lair. At the entrance, there was a huge corpse. The one that beat him up. I was shocked once again. I recognized it. It was a creature that had almost killed me. Now it lay there, lifeless and brutalized. It had probably tracked me down to my lair, intending to finish me off, only to be killed by him. A monster, huh? Good thing they don't appear in my world too often. As he said this, my consciousness faded away. There was a note about the monster statement, because they're saying specifically monster rather than beast. The note says, just like with beast, this is demon monster, but Refugian added furigana for just the word monster to clarify. This is specifying that it's not necessarily like these creatures that are in the world itself that aren't demons, obviously, that he was killing for the longest time. But now this is something different. This is a different thing from beasts, which that would make me believe that similar to the human world, we're talking about like the difference between like a wild boar being the beast, a wild boar, a wolf, versus a monster being one that is that with mana, warping it. So here's an odd connection here, if that's the differentiation that we're talking about here between beast and monster. Odd that it's specifying that, because that means that this world that he's currently in, which is the demon world, is beast as well, but he now run into something that has been morphed by the mana, and it beat the crap out of him. And now you have this individual that comes here to save his life, says specifically, I'm glad we don't get many of those. Implying the idea of mana warping beasts into monsters is rare. When I woke up again, the scenery around me had completely changed. The familiar poison swamps, the miasmic fog, and the cracked red-brown earth was gone. What I saw was a mountain, but not just any mountain. It was upside down. The mountain was growing down from the sky. For a moment, I thought that I was being held upside down, or maybe the person carrying me was moving upside down. But that was not the case. The gravity pulling at me was definitely downward. There really was a mountain above us. And when I looked down, I saw the sky, a vast, clear blue sky, stretching endlessly with white clouds drifting by, though at first I didn't realize that it was the sky. After all, the sky of the demon world was always gray. That's when I noticed I was flying. No, it wasn't me. The person carrying me was the one flying. Yes, the man who had wrapped me in his cloak and taken me away was flying through the air with me in his arms. Are you awake? Don't struggle now. The man said this once he noticed that I was awake. Since I had never spoken a word in my life, I didn't understand the meaning of what he said, but I do remember feeling fear as I looked down at the sky below us. I curled up tightly in his arms. Satisfied by my reaction, he increased his speed, and so we flew through the sky for a while. Though the landscape was mostly just mountains and sky, it was all new to me. The man offered no explanations, and I had no knowledge of where we were. I'm starting to wonder where the hell they live. If it's all inverted and they're actually gravity pulling towards the sky, that makes me either believe they have to burrow into the mountainsides or they have floating landmass. But I think that was the sky folk that was like that, where they had floating landmass. But I instinctively understood that I was now in a different world than the one that I lived in before. Not the lonely world where I was chased away from the elements, but a different one. I likely wouldn't return. The thought made me feel a slight pang of nostalgia for the dark, damp lair, but I quickly brushed it away. focusing on the new scenery. It wasn't a place worth reminiscing about. After a while, a particularly massive mountain came into view. It was so tall that the summit was lost from sight. As we approached the mountain, which now filled my entire field of vision, the man silently flapped his wings and began to descend. Is there something below? I looked down and saw something on the mountainside. With my limited knowledge, I couldn't describe it, but if I had known better, I would have called it a landing platform. Yeah, so I'm assuming like they have all these mountains that are coming down and there's literally like a little perch that they can get into. A stone slab jutted out from the mountainside, leading to a large entrance in the mountain. The platform, made of rock and wood, was clearly man-made. As we got closer, I saw several people standing on the platform. They looked exactly like the man. Beings with wings, scales, fangs, claws, and golden eyes. It's Lord Dragon God! Lord Dragon God has returned! So this is the Dragon God. Which again is like very interesting to kind of solidify this idea of individuals that are, again, descendants of a god itself, or at least not just a title, but physically being from the god. Everyone prepare to welcome him. Yes, that was his true identity, Lord Dragon God. He was the ruler of the dragon folk, the king of the dragon world. The moment they spotted Lord Dragon God, the people began bustling about. In no time, they lined up on the largest platform in the center, awaiting Lord Dragon God's arrival. So many people. The sight of them made me shrink back again. The memories of being driven away by the Demon King and the demon world resurfaced. I feared they might attack me. I'll come back. But to my surprise, they didn't attack. When Lord Dragon God landed, everyone standing in formation crossed their fists over their chest and folded their wings. Their expressions were filled with pride and joy. I had never seen such expressions before, but I could tell there was no hostility. Welcome back, Lord Dragon God. Among the crowd, I noticed a man who stood out slightly. He was a little larger than the others, and his presence felt different. His scales had a faint greenish tint, giving off a calm impression. But what stood out the most were his eyes. Like the others, they were golden, but they held an ephemeral fragility, mixed with a strong conviction to see something through to the end. At a glance, I could tell this man was the leader of this group. But of course, the true leader was the Lord Dragon God himself. Welcome back, Lord Dragon God. As Lord Dragon God approached, the man crossed his fists over his chest and folded his wings. It was the dragon folk's deepest bow of respect. How did the meeting go this time? Sizzlard, not much progress so far. How were things while I was away? No changes either, except for the 2 monster incidents. How many casualties? 3. 2 during the first incident, and 1 in the second. Minimal losses. What is that? The man called Slizzard noticed me in Lord Dragon God's arms. I found him on the edge of the demon world, a child of both demons and dragon folk. I haven't heard of any dragon folk crossing in the demon world. It might be connected to the monster outbreaks. I see. What do you want to do with him? I will raise him. Is this changing my perspective on what we're doing here? I haven't heard of anybody crossing over. They're teaching each other, so they have to be communicating with each other at some point. They have to be crossing the area. But I guess they're just talking about, we don't have anybody like just, cruising on over there. They're usually like in a group or whatever, teaching each other or whatever. But again, this also confirms that they are traveling between the locations. But specifying, okay, why does this thing exist? It might be connected to the monster outbreaks. Again, implying this is something that is shifting. Something is changing right now. The mana fluctuation is changing a lot right now. And I kind of wonder if that might be due to the humans themselves slowly over time, getting over the Dryden syndrome and adapting and whatnot. Again, they implied early on that these worlds themselves are not balanced. There's oddities about it. It's not built properly. This creator god kind of screwed up a lot. When Lord Dragon God said this, Slizzard glared at me. Perhaps he was wary of a child with such an ominous hair color, but he didn't question Lord Dragon God's decision. Slizzard was one of those who deeply revered and trusted Lord Dragon God. He wouldn't criticize his actions. Accepting the decision, Slizzard unfolded his arms and stepped back. Without saying anything further, Lord Dragon God went into the mountain from the landing platform, with me in his arms, of course. He walked through the dimly lit, square-shaped corridor. I had always assumed that caves were dark and narrow, but this corridor shattered that assumption. Ahead was a massive hollow space. The enormous cavern was supported by several thick pillars, and round buildings of many shapes were attached to the ground, ceiling, and pillars themselves. A strong light source near the center of the pillars illuminated the cave, making it as bright as daytime, and between the round buildings, people with wings flew back and forth. It was a town. I don't know if I ever actually thought about that, but that kind of implies the idea of the Chaos Breaker itself essentially being one of these mountains transported. When he brought it over there, it was essentially one of these mountains from the Dragon World that was brought over, and it has a castle on top of it, which again would explain why they had all those different little pathways underneath there. I think they may have implied that at some point, but I think there was also an assumption there that was going to be the Skyfolk's ruins as well. That's probably to the fact that it was in the Divine Continent. The interior of the mountain had been hollowed out to form a town. Lord Dragon God spread his wings and took off, though people were flying all around the town. The moment they saw Lord Dragon God, they stopped and crossed their arms over their chests. Without acknowledging them, Lord Dragon God flew on. It was easy to see where he was heading. At the very back of the town stood the largest building. From a distance, it looked like a simple round structure, but as we drew closer, I could see intricate reliefs carved all over it. Lord Dragon God landed on a slightly protruding platform near the center of the building. Then, without hesitation, he walked inside. The interior was just as spacious as it appeared from the outside. There was a ground hall, bedrooms, and corridors. All of it was more luxurious than anything I had ever seen. Without a word, Lord Dragon God descended the stairs. There was no hesitation in his movements. It seemed that his destination had already been decided. Soon, we arrived at a certain room, and Lord Dragon God came to a halt. He only stopped for a few seconds, as if remembering something. After that brief pause, Lord Dragon God knocked on the door. A light knock, twice. Then, he opened the door. "I'm back." "Welcome back, my lord." Inside, I saw a soft-looking bed, a wooden table, a leather chair, and sitting in the chair was a person, a woman. She looked completely different from the people that I had seen at the landing platform or flying around the town. Her skin was white with a slight red tint, soft-looking, without any scales. She had no wings, no tail. She didn't have sharp fangs or claws either, and her belly was slightly swollen. She was from a species I didn't recognize. A human? The dragon god just going around just like stilling up different races. He's got himself like a little, demon dragon dude, and he's got like a human wife at home. "And who's this child?" "A child between a dragon folk and a demon. I found him at the edge of the demon world, nearly dead." She's like, "So it's not your child?" "Oh, I see. Will you raise him?" "Yes." "Then will this child be your adopted son?" "Is there a problem?" "No, everything is as Lord Dragon God wills it." Lord Dragon God set me down the room and turned to leave, but the woman stopped him. "Here, I found this. I'm going to set this here. I'll be back later." But the woman stopped him. My lord, what is this child's name?" At her words, Lord Dragon God turned back and, with a troubled expression, shook his head. "He doesn't have one." "That's not acceptable. You must give him a proper name. It's the husband's role to name the children." I mean, I assume this is going to be his wife or his woman, and that she's potentially pregnant with his child, but that kind of confirms that they're married. So this human is married with the dragon god? "Even one that I picked up." "Yes." With that, the man looked down at me. I looked up at Lord Dragon God, waiting for his next words. "Laplace, your name is Laplace." Finally confirm it. It was like after a while, like reading all this, I'm going, I'm gonna feel so stupid if I'm misremembering and it's a different person. It's not Laplace. The assumption, because again, demonic dragon god. Of course, I didn't know any words yet. That was the first time I had ever exchanged words with anyone. But I understood that the man standing before me had just spoken something very important to me. Laplace. So I desperately repeated it. That word, my name. I repeated it so I wouldn't forget it, and thus I, Laplace, was born. Chapter 3, A Member of the Flock. Laplace, that was the name I was given. I was brought to the demon world. It was a harsh world, no less brutal than the demon world. A world where the mountains reigned, above where the sky should be, and the sky lay upon, below where the earth should be. At the base of the mountain lived massive dragons that couldn't fly, but the skies weren't safe either. As enormous dragons soared through them, small creatures without wings clung to the mountainside, living precariously where they hung like icicles. Even in such a world, people reigned supreme. This is one of those things where as you're reading it, your brain's trying to put things together, and it's like, okay. Again, sky down here, mountains, peaks coming down from here. And it's saying at the base of the mountains live the massive dragons that couldn't fly. Like they're just all chilling on top of like a base of rock. Like you have like all these upside down triangles and they're on top, or they're at the base of that mountain. It's got to be on the top, which is odd. That tells me that they just don't go to the surface of those mountains up there. But then you also have massive dragons that are flying around through the sky. This feels weird. It's inverted, so it's gonna be odd thinking about it. They were called the Dragon Folk, possessing wings and sharp claws. They flew freely and wielded immense power to hunt dragons in packs. That's the kind of race they were. Yet they weren't always rulers. Once they were weak, hiding in caves, midway up the mountainside, living furtively in fear of the giant dragons. It was one man who changed everything. Yes, it was Lord Dragon God. Lord Dragon God appeared before the cowering dragon folk one day and demonstrated his power. He showed them the strength dominant within the dragon folk and how to wield it. The dragon folk possessed a formidable force called the Dragon Aura. By using Dragon Aura, they can multiply their physical abilities, harden their skin, and even break through the sturdy bodies of the dragons with a single blow. Though the other races had a similar power as well, the dragon folk's power far surpassed that of the others. It was the ultimate power. With Lord Dragon God guiding them on how to draw out this power and how to use it, the dragon folks became the rulers of the world. They banded together, increased their numbers, and began to prey on dragons, rising to the top of the food chain. Under Lord Dragon God's leadership, they built a town, exchanged information with other worlds, developed various cultures, and flourished. However, in terms of civilization, they weren't much more advanced than the demons, especially compared to the world today. After all, they were so powerful they could survive without the need of developing further. But the idea of a world without a threat of external enemies, a world where you don't have to hunt because food was plentiful and someone would serve you, and there was no need to fear or feel anxious about hunger. That kind of peace was an unknown concept to me at the time. Constantly having to go out there and hunt the monsters and, not monsters, beasts, and fight to survive. I'm surprised we haven't talked about the dragon generals yet. I was given a room in Lord Dragon God's mansion. It was the most luxurious place in the dragon world. The mansion had many rooms and numerous servants. The room I was given was small and simple, but it was far more comfortable than the cave I lived in. It had everything I needed: bedding, food, clothing. The mansion was vast, and the servants were many. Yet there weren't many people they served. Only Lord Dragon God and his wife, Lady Lunaria. Lady Lunaria was mostly confined to the house due to her pregnancy. Lord Dragon God was often away, returning only every few days, but always visiting her when he did. She was treated like a precious treasure. She was loved by the other Dragonfolk members, with many visitors coming to see her. Every day, someone would visit, talk with her, have a meal with her, and then leave. However, if you compared the time when there were guests and the time that there were not, the latter was longer. During such times, Lady Lunaria stayed by my side almost constantly. If Lord Dragon God has adopted you, then you are my child, and this is your home. Feel at ease here. She followed Lord Dragon God's words and decided to raise me. However, she didn't do much for me. She simply visited my room, sat by my side as I huddled in a corner, and gazed at me with loving eyes. As a demigod of noble birth, the concept of teaching didn't exist to her. A demigod? Huh? Is she the human god? Question mark? I mean, demigod would imply that she's like half god and half human. I don't know if they've implied the idea that all the individuals that were broken off from the creator are considered demigods. Wait a little bit longer. I mean, it could be a child of the human god. As a demigod of noble birth, the concept of teaching didn't exist for her. The servants were the ones who tended to me. Following her orders, they treated me like a prince. They prepared meals, bathed me, and dressed me. Unfortunately, everything, table manners, bathing, wearing clothes, was new to me. When we were eating, I was scolded for not using utensils. When bathing, I screamed and cried as they scrubbed me with a hard dragonfolk brush. And when... ouch. Because it has scales. And when dressing, I moved too vigorously that I quickly tore my clothes. The servants frowned and scolded me, treating me as if I were scolding an unruly dog. But Lady Lunaria was different. Oh, there's no need to scold him. He may look big, but he's like a baby. Let's nurture him slowly, step by step. She instructed the servants to give me easy-to-use utensils, suitable for me, a softer brush for my non-scale skin, and they changed my clothes. They were now made from some stretchable fabric. Her considerate actions showed me she welcomed me. As Lord Dragon God instructed, she treated me like her own child. Even with a child soon to be born, she treated me, a stranger, as her own. Even now, thinking of her vast kindness and deep compassion brings tears to my eyes. Even if Lord Dragon God brought him here, he's nothing more than a beast. However, the servants couldn't share the same sentiment. They did not welcome my presence. My hair was more ominous than anything they had ever seen, and it was clear that my body harbored violent power. They must have believed that one day I would reveal my true nature and attack Lady Lunaria. But the servants were dragonfolk. They couldn't oppose the will of Lord Dragon God or Lady Lunaria. Even if they were displeased, they followed their orders obediently. I was about to say, these guys are getting real bold here. Lord Dragon God's not here, and they're getting real bold. They likely served Lady Lunaria and watched over me with a strong resolve to protect her from me if necessary. You're asking if I did nothing? No, I did what I could in my own way. Mainly, I just watched Lady Lunaria intently. Of course, it wasn't with the intent of attacking her. I was determined to protect her. Because it's Mama now. Though I lacked knowledge, I had wisdom. I understood who healed my fatal wounds and rescued me from that place of loneliness. I recognized that this was the lair of my savior. The people around were his flock, and I had become a member of that flock. I swore to myself that I must protect this woman, the mate of that flock leader. That said, being part of the flock was a new experience for me. As a member of the flock, I did what I could. Every day, I walked through the mansion, checking every corner for any sign of trouble. I peeked into every room and looked outside every window. I kept watch to ensure no external threats infiltrated the territory, a skill I had honed during my time fighting beasts as a humanoid beast. He's got the territory. Gotta protect the flock. Protect the flock. Of course, guests were an exception. I understood that the leader of my flock was also the leader of an entire region. Anyone showing respect to the top leader was no enemy. And so, I protected Lady Lunaria and the mansion. I never left the mansion. It was as if I dedicated myself entirely to guarding this lair. My new purpose after being taken in. Like a guard dog, you say? Please, don't say that. While I understood what a flock was, I wasn't sure what else I should do. Though, looking back, I might have thought of myself as some sort of pet during those days. Again, unless he's getting some sort of instruction or learning, yeah, of course he's going to have that mentality. He's just a wild animal that's been brought in. Lady Lunaria was there, and I was there. The servants, wary of me, still tended to me dutifully. Occasionally, Lord Dragon God would return, converse with Lady Lunaria, and check on me. Such a scene became routine, and thus a year passed in a blink of an eye. I was about to say, where's the child that she's supposed to have? Does it take her a long time? A year might seem long, but for beings like us who live for tens of thousands of years, it felt just like 2 or 3 days. It wouldn't have been a surprise if several hundred years had passed this way. But that wasn't the case. Whether out of pity for me as a loyal guard dog, or simply because I was seen as useless otherwise, Lord Dragon God decided to assign me an instructor. I was about to say, eventually you gotta start teaching them, like, how to read and write and speak your language and do things. So, you're the child Lord Dragon God picked up? The one with the cursed hair I've heard about? The person who arrived was rather extreme. One day, she barged into Lord Dragon God's mansion and marched right up to me, who was sitting quietly in a corner, and began speaking sharply. Since Lord Dragon God entrusts me with your education, I will fulfill my duty with responsibility. I won't discriminate against you for being half-demon. I'll treat you just as another scaleless dragonfolk. My instructor was a woman. She was a dragonfolk with particularly large wings and beautiful white scales. Without minding my bewilderment, she continued to hurl words at me. Naturally, her words didn't reach me. I didn't understand the language of the dragonfolk yet. Lady Lunaria had raised me, but hadn't taught me anything. As I've mentioned, she was royalty, and likely never even considered taking on such a task herself. The same went for the servants. Teaching language to someone who didn't understand it wasn't a part of their duties. I let out a growl, trying to intimidate the woman. I saw her as an intruder, someone who had so arrogantly invaded the mansion and openly displayed hostility towards me, a member of the flock, albeit a low-ranking one. Ha ha ha, that's a fine face you have there, but you will obey me, absolutely. Defiance will not be tolerated. However, I did not attack. At first, I only raised my voice. By doing so, I could alert the entire flock to the danger. If they chose to fight, that was fine. If they decided to flee, I believed it was my duty as a low-ranked member of the flock. It's like she's got barged in and he's just like the guard dog. Okay, everybody's running. Okay, I'll hold him back. Come on, attack me. I'll beat you first and make you understand your place. Grah. Despite the woman's continued provocations, I didn't move. I heard movements within the mansion, responding to my call. The members of the flock were approaching. Lady Lunaria's servants were coming. I waited for them first. Oh, so you're smart enough not to attack immediately. Or Are you just scared? What is happening here? The first to arrive were the servants. Seeing them, I thought our flock was gathered. We're ready to fight. I crouched and prepared to attack. If everyone attacked together, the chances of victory would increase. It was a piece of wisdom from my days in the demon world. A universal rule, still valid today. Again, probably back there when he was, watching the other demon folk, gathering around him. So, this is it. You finally reveal your true nature. But the servants didn't act as I had expected. Instead of attacking the woman, they surrounded me. They rejected me, showing their claws, fangs, and open hostility. Huh? I was baffled. I was supposed to be a part of the flock. They had even fed me. Yet they directed their hostility, not at the external enemy, but at me. Yeah, you're not one of the race. You're not one of the race. And again, they were waiting for this. They were literally waiting for this. When is he going to attack? When is he going to go hostile? He's been pretty much hunching in a corner this entire time. Lunaria is going in there every now and then. They don't trust him. It's not one of us. It has the hair color's different. It's unsettling. Again, it's causing an unsettling feeling. They don't like this thing. And now one of their own, a dragon folk, is coming in here. And now he's finally showing hostility. That's the threat. He's still the threat in the end. This is one of us. Well, they've been wary of me from the beginning. So perhaps it was inevitable. Nevertheless, I felt a profound shock. I recall the loneliness that I once experienced. Was I to be alone again? Even here? The thought filled me with sadness. What's going on here? A calm voice echoed through the room. It was Lady Lunaria. She entered gracefully, and upon seeing me, surrounded by everyone who bared their claws and fangs, she looked displeased. To be honest, I thought she was on the side of the servants. Lady Lunaria, it's dangerous. Please step back. What is dangerous? Lady Lunaria weaved through the servants, approaching me with quick steps. They tried to stop her, but she slipped through like a mirage. I didn't even know the full extent of her powers, but she wasn't just the wife of the dragon god for nothing. Again, I'm wondering if she's actually human. Again, it implied that she was human, right? And again, that she's a demigod. It's so funny. It's like, she's the most curious thing about this entire story so far, because we have a bit of information about Laplace. We have a bit of information about the dragon god, but not... I don't think we've ever mentioned Lunaria before. She gently embraced my trembling form, casting a reproachful glance at the others around us. Have you all forgotten Lord Dragon God's command to take care of this child? We apologize. The servants immediately crossed their fists over their chests and folded their wings. I vividly remember this moment. After all, I had never been protected by anyone like this before. But this was what I had longed for. To help and be helped. To protect and be protected. To live supporting one another. That's why, even after learning about Lady Lunaria's origins later, I never felt anger or hatred towards her. Okay, I'm glad about this, because this at least implies to me we're going to hopefully at some point in this story learn about who she is. But curious, even after learning about her origins, I didn't feel anger towards her, implying that something about her origins would normally be something that would anger him. And it could be towards later on, whatever she is going to cause a problem for him later. But either way, even now, I still respect and adore her. But let's set that aside. No! It's like Rufujin. So it's not just Rudius. Even in ODT, when it's Laplace talking, still does the same stupid crap. Let's put that aside. No, don't. Let's talk about it now. Lady Lunaria, satisfied with the servant's remorseful demeanor, turned her gaze to the woman. And you, Dragon General, what's the matter with you? What business brought you to my mansion? So that's finally, we're naming one of the Dragon Generals at least. The woman, addressed as the Dragon General, also crossed her fists over her chest and folded her wings in front of Lady Lunaria. Unlike the servants, she did not appear remorseful. I have been appointed by Lord Dragon God as Laplace's tutor. Lady Lunaria looked momentarily surprised at her words. However, she must have been informed beforehand, as she quickly softened her demeanor. I see. So, this commotion was because Laplace wouldn't listen? Exactly. But it's no problem. I'm used to dealing with unruly students. She said this without a hint of shame, and Lady Lunaria exhaled in relief. Then she gently stroked my wings and stood up, leaving me bewildered. Laplace, make sure you learn properly. With those words, Lady Lunaria... It's like I feel at peace again. I have my comfort blankie. I have an ally. Wait, where are you going? Wait, where are you going? With those words, Lady Lunaria left the room with light, graceful steps. The servants followed her, leaving just me and her behind the room. Now, let's continue. Come at me, coward, she presumed, provoking me, gesturing her finger to beckon me over. It was a clear invitation to attack. As I would later learn, whenever she educated someone, she always began by establishing a hierarchy. Yep, gotta get that dominance in there. She would speak with authority, and if challenged, she would overpower them to enforce submission. This method made her pupils listen, particularly effective with beasts or children who lacked understanding. In fact, she had tamed red dragons using this very method. Given her expertise, it was likely why she was chosen to be my tutor. Tasked with educating a wild child picked up from the demon world. However, I didn't react as she expected. I didn't bare my fangs or claws, but simply watched her. I didn't growl or shout, staying silent and listening to her words. Again, because I think Lunaria coming in there was a signal to this, beast of a kid. Oh, okay, well, the master's fine with this invader. I'm fine with the invader. He was only concerned by the fact that all the servants came and attacked him, or at least, bare their fangs at him. But her, it's like, well, she addressed it and walked away, so I guess we're good. Why would he attack? He has no reason to attack. What's wrong? Are you scared now? Stand up. Growing impatient, she grabbed my arm roughly and pulled me to my feet. Yet, I remained unchanged, standing quietly and looking up at her, as if waiting for her next command. By then, I had already realized she wasn't an enemy, yeah. I also sensed that she held a significant position within our flock. I reasoned that my earlier aggression was out of line, even reflecting on my mistake. Humph, what a pathetic look. Usually she would have struck me for such a display, but this time she understood that it would be counterproductive. Snorting, she released my arm. Show respect and obedience to me. I will never lie to you. Believe everything I say is true, so strive to understand from the bottom of your heart. I won't tolerate whining or excuses, and I won't allow you to say you can't do something. You will be wasting your time, but I won't cut corners, and I will definitely ensure you become a full-fledged dragon warrior. You got me. You got me. Yes, ma'am. You guessed me. Yes, ma'am. Won't lie to you. I don't want you whining, but I'm going to keep you straight. I'll get you up there. Just go with me here. I'll get you. She crossed her arms, wings flaring slightly as she declared this, looking down at me. I'm curious who this is going to be. Wings flaring slightly as she declared this, looking down at me with authority. Arrogant as she sounded, she always followed through with her words. She was an incredible person. Remember this. Being taught by me, one of the 5 dragon generals, is a great honor. You might not understand that honor now, but one day you'll be grateful that you learned from me. She might be able to back it up. She might be able to back it up. I mean, he says right there. I didn't know then, but she's an incredible person. She's obviously going to follow through. After saying that, she remained silent for a brief moment. At the time, I didn't understand, but she probably had intended only to make an appearance and provide me with basic discipline, beating me into submission as needed. Since creatures don't learn from 1 or 2 blows, it requires repeated punishment until they understand that resistance is futile. But since I was already submissive, there was no need to do so. I'll come again tomorrow. Maintain your current attitude. Got it? With that, she turned on her heel. Yet, I had something to express. As she turned away, I made a specific gesture. Reacting swiftly, she moved at an incredible speed. Before I could even process it, her knife-like hand was poised near my temple. She likely thought that I was a cunning beast pretending to be submissive, waiting to strike once her back was turned. As you know, there are many beasts and monsters like that. As she spun around, she would have intended to parry my attack and retaliate with a powerful strike, but it stopped short. That's because there was no attack to parry. I had simply assumed a familiar pose, clasped fists, and folded wings, the deepest bow of the dragonfolk. Laplace. I muttered just one word. Oh, and by the way, I barely understood much of what she said. That was all I could manage to say. Dola. I am Dola, Dragon General of the Armored Dragon Clan. Remember that well. Little bit of relation to Dola? Pedagogus Dola? Dola, that was her name. She introduced herself as I realized she hadn't done so before. Dola. And so, I remembered. The first thing I learned from my tutor was her name. Thus began my education under Dragon General Dola the very next day. And that's chapter 3. I'm probably going to wait to get into chapter 4. I kind of want to do chapter 4 as well, but I'm having a bad off day. Y'all, this sucks, I know, for like the first one of the getting into ODT to have a bad record day, but for those that have been around for a while, every now and then I have a bad record day where it's like, this is going to be hell to edit, and it's already going on for long. I think we'll probably still have pretty close to an hour and a half recording either way once it's finished, but what an interesting thing to get into already. Thoughts so far, I'm of two sides right now. I'm eating up this lore, obviously. The lore here is juicy. It's just juicy. I mean, we've already gotten from the point of creation. I'm kind of curious at this point how he knows about the creation. I guess he's going to learn it from, obviously what's passed down from, the dragon god and all the fragments of the god. I would assume they probably bestowed that information to the people, and thus, through that, Laplace will get that information from them. But I'm assuming they got a gist of how the worlds were created through them being a fragment from the creator god. But it's cool to get that sense of all these different gods that were sent to these different sides of the world that all have their own races, their own structures, but also an imbalance. That's the part that keeps sticking out to me as we go through these chapters, is this imbalance. They keep bringing up this imbalance. And I'm assuming because that imbalance keeps being brought up, there's oddities, again, now beasts and monsters appearing, this increase of the monsters appearing, this imbalance that is there, that they're trying to overcome, will eventually probably be the thing that brings about what leads to their destruction. I mean, we get it, of course, a sense from Orsted what that eventual destruction is going to be, but I think this is going to be the lead up to that. But getting that, lay down of how the worlds themselves are created, the lore around all the different gods and how they're trying to, work together in order to create this better stability and, living experience of all these individuals and citizens of all these different sides is interesting. And again, building into the origin story of Laplace. Of course, the big two question marks here that they're already posing is, where did Laplace come from? That's obviously a big question mark here. I'm still very curious about Lunaria. The idea of her being a demigod and seemingly not a dragon folk, and yet still being accepted very openly by these people. Did I misread that? I'm pretty sure it specified that she was human. As I'm reading more and more, I'm like, it's so odd they don't really kind of see her as different. Yeah, her skin was white, slightest red tint, soft looking with no scales. She had no wings, no tail. And she's a demigod? It makes me believe that she is going to be a child of the human god. So the question is how she came here. But this is giving me a sense here that you're going to have individuals that are going to be, birthed from these gods that are fragments of the creator. And that just puts a lot more importance upon them and how powerful they are. And it also kind of implies the idea that a lot of these people that sort of get bestowed a lot of potential power through the ages could be originally from fragments of the creator, which is interesting as well. Which makes me believe that a lot of people with potential of becoming of the title god of, Ruius's timeline could be direct descendants of them, being able to tap into that power source. But that's a crazy far off theory that we can get into eventually. But getting back to what I originally said, I am very curious about, again, Lunaria, her origins, why that origin would normally make him angered that he's not going to be angered by. What that's going to be about is going to be interesting as well. The easy assumption is, of course, because of the, later Laplace not liking the man god, it implies to me that the man god is somehow tied in with her, that she is a demigod of the man god. Again, going back to the original idea, is the man god actually going to be the human god? Or could he potentially, again, be a fragment of the original creator that was left behind? It goes back to a lot of those early theories that I had around the six-face world, the destruction of each of the sides, the death of the gods themselves, and again, the idea of why they had to seal the man god rather than kill him, and that was around the idea of potentially the worlds themselves collapsing because the god of their respective side is killed. And I think a lot of what was talked about at the very beginning of this story sort of supports that theory. Because each of the sides were unstable, he created these different gods that would then go to each one of the sides and take care of the people. And they could actually be anchors as well. Again, confirming that theory there. They could be anchors that are
required to be on those sides of the worlds in order for them not to collapse. And once those gods are killed, the world collapses. And again, they couldn't kill the man god because killing him would cause the human world to collapse. So that sort of confirms that eventually you might get into, yes, in order to destroy each of these sides as they invade it, they're going to be killing the gods of each of those sides. The beast god, the skyfolk god, etc., etc. What else? I did find myself at some point as I was reading through this, I'm going, I think I'm not actually spending enough time really kind of digging into each thing, and it's really because it's kind of unraveling it as you go along. And there's a lot of lore here. There's a lot of lore that we're kind of digging through here. But to my original point that I was getting into when I first wrapped up the chapter, this is a very lore-heavy story that I'm really, really eating up. I will say that so far I'm not really getting much for what I think Mushoku Tensei is like golden for, which is characters. I've always loved Mushoku Tensei for characters. And again, I think that was sort of the contrast that I had for a lot of individuals when I went into the side stories. When I finished volume 26, everybody was going, go to ODT, go to ODT. And I'm like, but I want to read all the side stories and the redundancies. I mean, 'cause these are like after stories, right? I want to find out where the characters go. No, do ODT. And I think what I found when I was getting into the redundancies is that I was liking it more than other people. And that was mainly because I like characters and I was getting more characters. And everybody wanted me to do ODT, which I was going to assume was going to be more lore. I like both, but I obviously always favor Refugion's writing when it comes to characters. That said, I am liking what I'm getting so far. I think he's done a really good job of sort of realizing this origin of this world, or the worlds. It's fascinating. It's interesting. Hopefully he's not too vague with things and they get all these answered. Again, they imply they are going to answer what Lunaria is. That's already my biggest question mark. I'm assuming eventually they will answer who Laplace was. But you see so far, I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Anyways, I'm going to have like probably a million things that I'll think of as I'm editing that I forgot to talk about that I will cover at the beginning of the next Mushoku Monday, as I usually do. A lot of cases, I'll read through it. I'll give my impressions as we go along. And then when I go to edit it, I'm going to think of a million things. I'll write them down as I'm editing, and I'll talk to him the next Mushoku Monday, and we'll get into the next chapters. But for now, that is it for this Mushoku Monday. I'm curious what our pacing is so far. I'm guessing, based on how this book is laid out, it's only technically 296 pages. So we're looking at maybe possibly 5 or 6 Mushoku Mondays for ODT, which isn't insanely long, but it's a good start. It's a good start. I might pick up more pacing next week. Again, this week is just only kind of bad because just a bad record. I'm just off my game. I'm really bad at off my game today. So I hope you guys will be patient with me like I usually do whenever something like this happens. Be patient with me. We'll get through it. But that's the first part of many of ODT. I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As always, thank you so much for your support, chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Hey, chat, hit that like button before you leave. I greatly appreciate your support, your kind words, all that stuff. It means a great, great deal to me. You guys are amazing. And yes, as per usual, I greatly appreciate it. Support channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. Again, I cannot express enough. You guys are absolutely amazing. But until I was gonna go look for my book, I didn't even grab it this time. Until the next Mushoku Monday, y'all take care. The woman addressed as the Dragon General. 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 Dragon General. The woman addressed as the Dragon General. Lady Lunaria, satisfied with a servant's remorseful demeanor. Lady Lunaria, satisfied with a servant's